Rania, welcome to the show. As we talked a little bit before we started recording, you have such an impactful mission and purpose. Your bio just covers such a broad scope, and we are in a time of transformation where humanity either grows or we die. So there's no longer sitting on the fence post, and it's looking to people such as yourself who have really come into such a full, rich experience of their life purpose. I would like, if you would, to share with the audience a little bit about who you were as a child. When were you born with this amazing fire and clarity and understanding of your purpose, or how did that emerge from your childhood into kind of where you're at today?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's such a pleasure to be with you, Moon, and I'm excited for us to share all these amazing insights and to share my story with the audience as well. My beginnings were very humble. When I started as an adult going into my entrepreneurial journey, my beginnings were extremely humble. But my childhood, I always, when I'm trying to explain to mentees or to people that I coach and to clients that I work with, I always tell them that in order for me to become a resilient leader, I had to become a resilient child. And my childhood was pretty complicated. I grew up in Beirut during the Civil War in the late 80s, early 90s. And I was a very little girl when the war erupted in Lebanon. And I remember how difficult our lives were. We were displaced for a long time. We had to move from place to place, from country to country. Our home was bombed several times. Our lives were on the line. We were literally in situations where we were just feet away from a large explosion and we got through it alive. So I kind of survived a lot of these moments, not just myself, also with my family, with other people that were sharing this collective experience within our own community who are exposed and subjected to the conflicts. But these experiences at a very early age were very awakening in a way, because I did not have a normal childhood in a sense where life was rosy and everything was available and you're safe and your city looks amazing. When the conflict ended, we were going out with my family, and downtown Beirut was rubble. It was totally destroyed. We were basically climbing up and down on rocks. And those are the moments of my life that gave me a better sense of what's meaningful, what's the most important aspects of life that we need to value and to emphasize on, like having peace, like having collaboration, like being cooperative, like acceptance, and having this mindset where you are able to move through and overcome difficulties, because you need to survive and you need to thrive eventually, and you cannot stay stuck in your trauma. You cannot stay stuck in the situations that put you down. You cannot stay stuck in economic crisis that's going on around you and destruction that you're trying to absorb and understand, and the lack of safety. So the survival mode kicks in, and that pushes you through the moments of traumatic experiences that you're exposed to. And then after you push through that survival instinct, other emotions kick in. I want to be better. I want to do better. I don't want to live my entire life limited to the circumstances that are surrounding me and that are limiting me from achieving my purpose, because there's so much crisis going on around. And I grew up with that ambition. I don't want to be stuck. I don't want to just conform to what's available and what's not. And eventually it was going through those early traumatic experiences and the inconveniences and the hardships and all the different things that we had to go through at an individual level and also with my family. Those were the things that drove me forward, and they put that fire in me to want to do more with my life, to want to find my purpose, to want to achieve more, and to want to be also a force of good in this world and do whatever good I can and whatever positive impact I can create, because I know the value of not having a support system, not having a peaceful, supportive, conducive to productivity type of an environment. So I know the lack of all these things that can help you to get on your purpose. And for me, it became what motivated me to want to be able to not only align with my own purpose and achieve my own goals, but also take all this energy and being able to channel it to help others do the same.
And you absolutely have. And one of the things that you mentioned was that because of the trauma that you've been through, and we've all been through a global, what I like to call a near-death experience, the global pandemic is such a time of crisis that humanity has never collectively seen before. And so it's like we're being squeezed. And when you squeeze an orange, apple juice doesn't come out. So whatever is inside you comes out. And that trauma that you went through seemed to express your essence of wanting peace and collaboration and community and global service. And so I love that you have shared with the audience that it was, in fact, your trauma that gave you such a clear insight into what you didn't want, that it itself served as the light and the clarity for what you do. And so when you're saying you can't stay stuck in your trauma, I think there are so many millions and millions of people right now that are looking for exactly what you hit on, that peace, that community, that collaboration. How did that emerge in your life? Did you start getting involved in community organizations? How did you build that?
It was really a gradual, it was a progressive way of getting to where I am. I came to the US at the age of 18. I was very young when I immigrated. So I left my country at a very early age. I came to the US because there was a lot of limitations in my own home country. There was a lot of economic issues. There was a lot of family issues and other types of inconveniences and crises that I was surrounded with. And leaving and coming to a new country was my ticket to really start a new life, to leave certain things behind and be able to get on my path. Having the vision, because I always wanted to do something where I can not only use my talents and employ all the characteristic traits and the skills and what I hold within. I didn't only want to deploy that and use it, I also wanted to be able to expand on it. I wanted to take that further beyond myself, what I can achieve for myself. And having that initial vision was actually what drove me to go into entrepreneurship. I started my entrepreneurial journey very early. I was still in college. I was an undergraduate school when I started my first business. And through that, following that entrepreneurial instinct and that entrepreneurial spirit was really another ticket for me to expand on my vision and what I wanted to do. And from there, I started to connect with more people, connect my vision to a mission and to goals and to strategies that can help me achieve those goals and that can help me start to channel and distribute myself into different avenues. So I went from being an entrepreneur and having a track where I'm building a business and growing a company and creating innovative tech products to having the ability to implement impact strategies, where we started to integrate impact strategies with business strategies and how we can bring together purpose with profit and help other people achieve also certain goals. I was able to create different collaborations across increasing equity and diversity in the workplace to reducing labor exploitation and production pipelines to helping to reduce child labor and supporting women into going into leadership. So there was different ways for me that I was able to take that vision and implement strategies that help me not only to grow my business as an entrepreneur in the tech field, but also as an impact leader who had a vision where we could combine strategies, where we can bring solutions that are innovative and that could increase profitability for us as a business, but also that can help to provide value to the community, where we are helping to raise awareness on certain issues, where we are helping to create safer and better work environments for workers, where we're helping to reduce inequity, and we're helping to reduce any types of human rights violations within certain environments that we were already tapping into. So that's really how things progressed, going
Wow.
from, the student who came here very vulnerable. I had nothing, absolutely nothing at all. I had no support system. I had no money. I had to start from scratch, to really honing on to that fire that I came with, that fire that was already within me, the ideals that I already had, the vision that I already have been always dreaming about as a child, and started to expand on that in a very, very practical ways. And that was really how things progressed. It's connecting the vision and the ideals with practical implementations and practical strategies that can help you to achieve and to materialize those types of ideals and the vision that you have, and the values that you want to see in the world being implemented and being used. That's
Yeah.
really in brief how things started and how I ended up here.
And that was a beautiful overview of your life's journey, because you've just had your hands in so many different aspects of commerce and human connectivity and service. And I want to get in a moment, I want to go into your new expression of self, and that's the pillars of human potential, because man, that just really, really resonates with me. As you were telling your story about how you emerged from this lost, unsupported college student in a new land with no support system to where you're at today, it was just so obvious that you had a dream and you got clarity on it, and then you started sharing it with others. And in that share of others, you connected like minds and individuals that were like, yes, I believe in that. And so then they filled that aspect that you didn't have a skill set for, right? You weren't trying to be everything to everybody, but you had a very, very clear vision and shared it. And it's kind of, I got that image of, neurons when when you're thinking or you're reading, or you're experiencing something new, the little, dendrites stick out and connect with others. And that's literally as within, so without. You started doing that on a very real, expressive way. And that is something that I think that humanity lacks an experience of, is, oh, I've got a spark inside of me, let me share it and see what lights up outside of us. We're so afraid to share that spark in case somebody pours water on it and puts it out. What can you say to speak to, and we can use this to transition into your pillars of human potential. What would you say to somebody who feels like they have this spark, this yearning, especially women, like right now in this time period, we are the creators and the nurturers. And we think in a collaborative constellation way more about the process than the product. What can you speak to women right now who are feeling that yearning and just aren't sure?
The yearning part, that's something as humans we all experience, but for women particularly, it's a whole other level of yearning, because we tend to suppress so much. We are dealing with so many types of conditioning, socially, economically. There are so many limitations that women have been subjected to, and a lot of subconscious blockages that we have been generationally dealing with. And up until now, I feel I always have to be extremely self-aware in certain moments where I see myself. Here you're conforming, here you're scared because there is something in the back of your mind that's influencing your decision in the moment, because you were told as a child, being a female, being a girl, being a young woman, this is not good, this is wrong, you can't do this, you can't say that. And I'm always aware of myself when I fall into the trap. So it's something we have to keep working on, regardless of how evolved we have been and how successful we get as women. We have a lot to still subconsciously deal with and unpack and overcome. And having that yearning, I think that one of the best things that any woman can do, if you have a yearning to achieve more, if you have a yearning to express yourself more, is to do it. And I know this sounds simple, but it's not, because a lot of the time you could have a story you want to tell. You know your story, you know what you went through, you know what you want to say, and it's right at the tip of your tongue, but you have no courage to open your mouth. And it's moving from holding on to what you want to say to actually releasing it. It takes a lot of courage. That transition, it's not so easy when you have a lot that's holding you back on the inside. So the best way to do it is to fire that gun. Fire that gun, let the fire come out. Trust yourself, have more confidence in who you are, have more confidence in your own story, have more confidence in your own vision and your own goals, what you want to accomplish, have more confidence in your self-worth. I think that particular area is one of the most critical areas for us as women, because that's the part of us that's always been poked at through conditioning and through being exposed to a lot of different types of societal norms and impositions and traditions and sexism and so much around us that keeps chipping away at our self-worth and at our own sense of value. And I think that's the area that all of us need to keep working on in order to overcome that blockage, where we can transform our yearning to actual accomplishment, where we are moving beyond holding on to that fire to releasing it and firing that gun. So that's what I would say, just fire that gun.
Just let it rip. What I hear you saying is, one of the things you said was, you noticed that you'd be like, oh, I see myself. And wow, what powerful words. I see myself. And you followed it with an understanding of a constriction, a limitation, a conformity. I see myself conforming too. And I think that there's, maybe not in this audience, but definitely people that our audience members know and love. There are so many women out there and people out there that do not understand how our personalities create our personal reality, and going behind that, how our personalities are created by the reality of others, like not even understanding how they're subconsciously taught and trained to conform. So I think that's a first step. In order to see yourself, you have to understand what it is you think you are and where that came from. And then to be able to say, that's not me. That fear's coming from something that wasn't me. I didn't choose it. I just believed it because I didn't know there was any other way. And we are in a time frame right now in the world where we have access to so many other ways. So Rania, when you're talking about key practices and strategies to unlock the power of your purpose, that's like music to my soul. So let's get into some of those things that you can share with our audience to give them maybe the strength to pull that trigger, and also some discernment on who to pull that trigger around. Because if you want to, what does the Bible say? Don't pour your pearls before swine. Like there's a sense of discernment, and that's a skill to build, where I'm gonna put myself out there. I'm gonna be courageous and I'm gonna be vulnerable, and I'm gonna do it in the best context possible, which isn't around the naysayers.
I'll walk you through certain strategies that I think would be really important for anyone who wants to really get in connection with their purpose and actually stepping into it. I personally believe that self-actualization is the supreme expression of a human's life. And there are ways that we can start to cultivate this extraordinary potential that we have, that we all possess, in order to find purpose.
Can you share with the audience real quick before you go along what you mean, like maybe break down self-actualization?
Sure. So when we talk about self-actualization, we're talking about reaching that highest potential of self, where we are evolving and we are reaching not only our highest self, we are also reaching our highest expression of our whole self. So we are really embodying our identity, we're embodying our full potentiality, we're embodying everything we are capable of doing. And through that embodiment of who we are able to actualize ourselves, meaning we are able to really, really express ourselves to the maximum of what we contain. And in that sense, we become self-actualized. We are not only existing from a place of lack, we're existing from a place of wholeness and from a place of consciousness and from a place of embodiment of our full identity. And through that, we are expressing everything that we have, and we are fully present to the maximum potential that we have, because we have it. We just need to embody it, and we need to grow in that potential to reach that higher level of self-actualization. That's what I really mean by it.
Excellent. Thank you. And then, so I know that I interrupted you on that. So self-actualization that's the goal. And so what were some of the tips that you were going to share to help people understand how to get there?
Sure. One of the most important things to do, the first one, is to practice self-awareness. That particular area, a lot of people fall into the trap of the ego self and not being fully present and not being able to detach from themselves, to see themselves from another person's perspective. I think it's very important to practice self-awareness to become much more connected to who I am, what I do what I do, why I respond this way, why I react that way, why I speak this way, why I feel this way. Those are the conversations that we have with ourselves that make us much more aware of who we are. Because if we don't build that connection, there is no way for us to grow. That connection to ourselves is what puts us on the path to personal growth. And without that, being present, without being able to achieve self-awareness and practice self-awareness on a daily basis, it's very difficult for us to evolve and to become better and to reach that higher self and to self-actualize. So it's extremely important to practice self-awareness. The second thing connected to the practice of self-awareness is embracing your inner world and enriching it. We don't have to live with an empty self when you can have a life that's rich, and that richness is really within us. And within that process of practicing self-awareness, we can start to really decode our own mysteries, because those are really the keys to our higher self. We practice the self-awareness, we start to connect, we start to decode our own mysteries, we start to hold the keys to reaching that higher self. And once we do that, we need to embrace that inner world, because there's so much going on within us unless we are incapable of being self-aware. Because I have seen so many situations when we're talking about people that have perhaps mental illnesses or personality disorders, where the practice of self-awareness is non-existent because they're incapable of doing that. But for the majority of people who are capable, who are healthier and able to do that, that's going to be the key. And being able to embrace our inner world and enrich it, that's going to be the way for us to stay there, to connect, and to be able to start opening those keys. I think that the key is also not denial. So when we are denying ourselves, I think that's the first step to cutting off that wire that connects us with ourselves. So when you're in denial state, no, I'm not like this, I don't do that, I'm not this. This is burning that bridge between your consciousness and your self-awareness. And in that disconnect, there is no way, again, for you to grow and reach that self-actualized place. So in that process, the key is not denial. The key is self-love, acceptance of the incomplete parts of ourselves with curiosity and rigor, so we can start to integrate, we can start to bring those parts together and we can start to face the parts of ourselves that we are not necessarily proud of, or the parts of ourselves that are underdeveloped and they need to be worked on. So the key is not denial, and that's an essential part of us being able to, again, reach that higher self and reaching the self-actualization that will be the supreme expression of our life. The next one I would like to talk about is the importance of developing a language to talk about your needs and your feelings, because that will enhance the possibilities of having real communications with others. And that's an area that a lot of people struggle with. So once we practice self-awareness, once we decode our own mysteries, once we embrace our inner life and we enrich it, once we make sure we are not living with an empty self and we are really connecting with that rich life within us, once we leverage the key of staying away from denial and accepting and self-loving and integrating all different parts of ourselves, we need to now develop a language through which we can translate all that, everything that's inside that I was able to connect with and I was able to embrace. I want to be able to express it. I want to be able to communicate it. And in order to do that, I need to develop a language to talk about my needs, about my feelings, about my goals, about my ideas, about my process, about my growth journey, about my learnings, my mistakes. Those are the things that a lot of people struggle with, is bridging between the self and others. And that happens through communication. The one thing that I've noticed by working with so many different people that I coach and I mentor, and many of them are executives and very successful leaders, and some of them are students and young entrepreneurs. But the common thing that I've seen is that many people struggle with translating that inner world to someone else, to really expressing themselves in a way where that can help to build real communication, that can help to build real relationships, because they're always hiding, they're always scared to say their truth, they're always scared they're going to step on somebody's toes. There's a lot of fears that we have subconsciously built in through our personal experiences that sabotage us from expressing our inner world with others. But there's also the people-pleasing aspects where a lot of us have been conditioned over our upbringing or over being around other people who would always tell us, you need to keep it to yourself, you need to keep it quiet.
Yeah,
You
don't
can't
rock the
say this.
boat. Who do you think you are?
Exactly.
All of that. Yep.
And the fear of judgment, I think, is a huge one for a lot of people, because I believe, and you mentioned that beautifully earlier, there has been so much in how we evolved as humans that moved us away from the path of being able to embrace our humanity. There has been a moment in time where people really went so far in terms of becoming more robotic and more stern and more stoic and how they express themselves, because they have been told if you share how you feel, you're going to look as someone so vulnerable or too emotional or weak or whatever. Like, there has been so many things that have been communicated to us that made us think or believe that we have to always show up as these really stoic, stern, cold, professional, warrior type people that have no feelings, because God forbid you have feelings and you express them, you're going to be judged in all different ways that only weaken you and not really respect your humanity.
And it
And
is time to restory that story that we all collectively participated in, whether it was consciously or unconsciously, but we've all participated in it. And with this global crisis that we've come through, and we're coming through on the other side of it, just like, through its emergence through emergency. We have had this emergency, this crisis, and just like the Black Plague killing millions of people, what came out of that was the Renaissance, the rise of creativity and self-expression and self-actualization. And where we're at now is so much more broad, and there's so much more possible than way back then. We have access to information that has never happened on a scale in humanity. If a 6-year-old wants to learn how to be a Tibetan monk, you can learn that online, right? If you want to learn a recipe from Ethiopia and one from New Zealand and one from Africa, you can experience the world in a very visceral way now that hasn't been capable before. It's also, we are experiencing things on 100, maybe 1,000 times more of an intensity than any human in past history. So coming at this experience with what you've just laid out with self-awareness, with inner self-exploration, there's a Hopi prophecy, and it's on a stone here, and I think it's in Nevada. And it's a timeline of humanity. And there is one timeline where there are the stick figures of humans and their heads are severed and they're floating above their bodies. And they just kind of separate off into the abyss. And then the ones who are wholeness in themselves and have a deep connection with this beautiful body, this is our vehicle of expression, are the ones that consciously ascend. And so when you're talking about decoding your inner mysteries, yeah, what is it that you're actually feeling? Where did you learn that story? Where did you learn that belief? And start dissecting these things and not denying them. Just because you've experienced them in the past doesn't mean that that's your hard and fast you. That's just an expression you picked up through your life. And then what you just wrapped up with was naturally expressing yourself in a way that's authentic to you. You know, we're taught, if we're born into a family of lawyers and doctors, that's who we become. If we're born into a family of ranchers, that's who we become. But that's not necessarily your natural, innate self-expression. So I love everything that you're talking about, because it's just a new way of looking at the outside by first looking at the inside.
Absolutely. And I want to connect back to what you said about the crises, because the next point I wanted to actually mention, so it aligned perfectly with what you said. Part of that process of reaching self-actualization and reaching that highest self is accepting chaos as part of our evolutionary process. And when we accept chaos, whether that's a crisis that's happening in the world, like the pandemic, whether that's a crisis that we're going through at a personal level, whether that's something that's going on in your environment that's absolutely out of your control and you cannot escape out of, whether that's a health crisis that, again, it's not in your control. The chaos normally that happens in our lives is either self-imposed because it's something we are fighting with internally, or it's completely out of our control. It's been imposed upon us by external circumstances. And either way, if we are not connected with the inside, we are not strong to handle the chaos and the crisis, whether that is internal or external, it will be very difficult for us to keep moving forward. And I think that's why I would love to emphasize on the point that the more we accept whatever chaos is going on internally or externally, and really utilize that as an opportunity for us to learn and to find new ways to adapt and where we can grow, that's essential to our evolutionary process in order to self-actualize, to reach that higher self, to be able to become better humans and more self-aware and more able to move through difficulties. And this is where the component of resilience is so important. It has to start with the acceptance of the chaos, the acceptance of the crisis, and really building that inner resilience to be able to adapt to it and really siphon that negative energy to produce something positive that can help you move forward. And in that process, to become better, that process is also about eradicating all what keeps you away from reaching your potential, which could be your own mindset, could be your own conditioning, your own blockages, your own fears, the voices in your head. It could be people in your life that are impacting you negatively. It could be circumstances around you that are not necessarily supportive to your own growth. It could be the place where you live. It could be the company you work for. It could be the friend who's always adding toxicity to your life or kind of moving you into wrong directions because they have bad habits and that's influencing you. So whatever that is, becoming better is a process of eradication of everything that keeps you away from reaching your own potential. And with that, another important strategy is building that motivation where you don't settle. You don't settle for who you are now, because we always have been in situations where who you are in this moment is not going to be the same person who you are after this happened, whether that's a trauma or an incident or a breakup or losing a job or a crisis or a war or an earthquake, whatever that moment was, and whoever you were in that moment or under these circumstances, you're not going to be the same after the storm passes. And that storm is going to transform you. You're going to become a different human being if you allow yourself to be self-aware and to use the self-awareness in order to develop. But that comes with the mindset of not settling for who you are now, because conforming and being comfortable and remaining the same is ultimately going to be to your own destruction. You will never reach that place we're talking about. You'll never reach the higher self. You're never self-actualized. You're going to remain in that bubble where your character is not evolving, your circumstances are not evolving, your career is not evolving, your relationships are not getting better, your dreams are not being realized, your vision will never come to reality in any way. So the more you refine your character and the more you connect with yourself and the more you are eradicating all the different things that are keeping you away from reaching your potential, the more and the closer you will be able to reach self-actualization and alignment with your own purpose.
And I think it comes down to it's a choice.
Yes.
Rania, you had a really traumatic childhood. I had a traumatic near-death experience where I lost most of my arm. And it's in those moments where there's a decision point. And I think that up until that point where I had the opportunity to make that decision, I wasn't actually making my own decisions. I was on autopilot.
Mm-hmm.
And here I am in this crisis. And like you, it's like, all right, what do I believe? Who do I choose? What do I choose? And I really got an opportunity and created the opportunity to examine our beliefs. And I think that, the world is under the process right now of examining their beliefs and getting really curious. And it's that curiosity, it's that spark of imagination. As Einstein said, he was asked by a child once, Mr. Einstein, how do we become as smart as you? And his response was, read fairy tales. And the kids didn't like that response. So another kid pops up and says, well, how do we become smarter than you? And he said, read more fairy tales. And the key to it is use your imagination. And for generations and millennia, our imaginations have been suppressed and oppressed and conformed and confined. And now is a time to break through that and just get really curious about who and what you could be. And when you're saying just do it, just fire that gun, just let that go, start with asking, like, what would it be like? Because your brain doesn't have the context of what could it be like. It only knows the data that's coming in. So just asking those questions, what do I choose? What could it be like if I felt like, if I did X? And really capturing that inner curiosity so that you can decode your mysteries. I love that.
I love when you interject, Moon. You're brilliant because you're connecting exactly with the flow of the ideas that I'm also sharing with you today. What you're saying, it really ties to another strategy that I personally think it's essential, which is getting uncomfortable. And what you're talking about, the essence of what you're saying is really getting uncomfortable and pushing your own boundaries, because those are the moments where you are questioning. It's a decision. I have to make a decision. And in order to make a decision where I'm going to go, you have to be okay with getting uncomfortable. And in the moment of feeling that discomfort, that's when you need to push those boundaries. You need to expand from that place of limitation in order to move past this moment And the decision requires you to really push some boundaries of your own, the boundaries you've created or the boundaries that have been subconsciously embedded in you that are limiting you from moving forward or expanding and growing into your own purpose. I think, and we're talking about the same thing, that convenience and comfort are fatal for your growth. You cannot develop as a human being, you cannot broaden your capacity if your experiences are not varying. And if you find yourself, you're in a place where your limitations or your habits or your behaviors or conditionings or traumas or people or circumstances are really the driving forces behind the choices that you're making that are keeping you in that convenient and comfortable place that there's nothing positive about, it's just comfortable and it's just convenient, but it's that slow poison. It's that slow poison where it's killing you very, very, very slowly,
Yeah.
but you're not aware that that's what's going on. So it's very important to push yourself to consciously step into new roles, into new situations, into areas that can help you increase your awareness, whether awareness of self or awareness of your surroundings and other people in your lives. And those are going to be the things that are going to test your abilities and challenge your mindset and beliefs in order to help you move beyond those limitations that are either self-imposed or externally imposed on you.
Yeah. Dr. Jean Houston talks about the heroine's journey. And for the hero's journey, there's a call to action, right? And steps out and seeking, success and love and adventure and all these things. And for women, that call to adventure is that yearning of becoming, the yearning of collaboration and connection. And if we all are feeling that, male and female, we all have that call. And the thing is that the call, we feel it. And then if we what if it, that's saying no to the call. And we just get stuck in that cycle. And our souls are here to evolve and to express our higher self, our higher purpose. We all have a divine purpose in life. And when we say no to that calling, it is the death of our soul. And we must come back time and time again until we can finally say yes. And this is the time of humanity to say yes, because we've never had so much support and help. Think about, Einstein and Leonardo da Vinci and all these amazing thinkers who had such intense awareness of imagination and such love and passion for it. They were truly isolated and alone. Death threats. I mean, life was a struggle for them. Look at us. We can hop on a podcast. We can get on a Zoom. We can get on a social media group and find like-minded people who are willing to say, what if, and who are willing to be curious. And so I would encourage all of the audience that if you're having a moment of hesitation and you're afraid that you're going to be ridiculed and scorned and burned at the stake, that era has passed. And if you are ridiculed and scorned, you have access to millions of people around the world who are asking themselves the very same questions you are, who have the very same yearning. And it is a time for collaboration and us to build communities of learning and teaching, where we learn and we teach, we learn and we teach. We no longer have to go to a university and have one person top down the chosen, decided platform of information. And you have access to brilliant, compassionate, giving hearts, souls, and minds like you, Rania, who are bringing your world global platform and your calling and your purpose to the individual, and starting to do more one-on-one coaching and public speaking and getting this soul-to-soul message out. And so if there's anybody in the audience that wants to connect with you, where can they find more about you?
The best way to connect with me would be through my social media pages on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, if they'd like to connect there. If anyone wants to connect with me directly or have any requests of some sort, whether for coaching services or for speaking engagements or for me to join their boards as an advisor, they can contact me through my website. So I'm reachable through all these different digital means. That would be the best way to connect with me.
And we'll have that in the text below. Rania, what would you say, a special message to women right now who are feeling the yearning, and hesitating?
I want to say that it's very important to really strengthen your self-belief and create certainty within yourself. We all have the yearning, and I know women have these limitations and these blockages maybe more than men do, but I don't want to assume that either. But for women particularly, I think it's very important that they start to work on that part of themselves, to really believe in themselves and to create certainty and to really look at all the different things that have been affecting their sense of self and their sense of value and their self-worth, and where they have conformed or compromised or held themselves back because of all these subconscious messages that have been embedded or incepted in their minds, or that they have been conditioned to over years and years of either upbringing, society, external messages through media or other people or traditions or community. I think that's an important part. And the second part of it is to really activate your courage. Everything we want to do, everything we want to achieve, it starts with that. And we talked about this briefly earlier, where I said there's a big gap between you having a story at the tip of your tongue and actually releasing the words. And it doesn't have to be a message, it could be an action as well. But when we are standing on that edge of deciding whether we want to jump or whether we want to speak or whether we want to act or whether we want to pursue, that moment can be so long. It could be days, it could be months, it could be years of our lives where we are standing on that fence because we don't have the courage, because we don't have the self-belief, because we don't have certainty within ourselves, because we have so many limitations that are holding us back from moving past that invisible line. It's a threshold that we are not aware that it's there, but we were so close. Between you and your goals is a line, is not miles and miles of distance. It's a thin line. And if you can break through that line and that threshold, you're stepping on that path. You're embodying the power of your purpose, and you're taking the actions with the courage, with the conviction, with the self-belief, with the certainty, with the self-awareness, with the understanding of your mysteries, with the big connection to yourself, with the embracing and acceptance and self-love, with the capacity to be able to communicate and have a language through which you can express your needs and your goals and your feelings and your ambitions. And all of those tools combined with a lot of courage is going to be the key to life itself. That's going to open all other aspects of your being, whether you are a woman or a man, it doesn't really matter. But in general, courage is the key. And when you begin to unleash your own potential, you will find yourself directing your actions within society towards assisting other people to release theirs as well. And I think that's what you also were talking about, with people like us and so many other individuals out there who were able to tap into that potential, and they were able to understand the power of their purpose. Once you unleash that, once you fire the gun, you will find yourself directing your actions in so many different ways. And I know that from experience. And imagine when you are in that position where now you are totally unleashed and you are stepping on your path. You are understanding and embodying the power of your purpose with all the different strategies that can help you and support you on that path of reaching your potential. Imagine the magnitude of positive social change that the net effect of individuals cultivating their own potential can bring at large.
Yes.
And that's really the level of responsibility that we have to ourselves and towards the world that we live in and towards everyone around us.
Yes. What a beautiful message to wrap this up with. That was a really beautiful journey that you took us all on. Imagine yourself as if. so that you can finally truly see yourself.
Exactly.
Rania, you are a shining light. I am so honored to be able to see you. I feel like you see me, and I am excited for how the world is going to be different as you continue to share your light throughout. So thank you so much for blessing me with your time. I've truly loved every moment.
Thank you so much, Moon. It was such a pleasure to share this conversation with you today. And I hope our conversation will add value and will inspire and motivate so other people benefit from what we were able to talk about in this interview.
I think so. It's a beautiful message to the world. And so to my friends out in the audience, thank you so much. And I want to remind you that the only thing holding you back in your life is your story. And the beautiful thing about stories is they can be rewritten, and it is time for you to restory yourself. And when you do, the world you see changes, and you are perfect just as you are. I'll see you next episode. Moon out.